Good evening to you both, and let's begin with an overhaul of Danielle Smith's cabinet, including the creation of 2 new health services portfolios.
With this team of ministers, we will keep our promises to shorten wait times, improve primary care, ensure Albertans' needs are being met in the most appropriate setting, and develop an even stronger focus on mental health and addiction supports.
Adriana LaGrange moves from Health to Minister of Primary and Preventative Health Services. Former Jobs Minister Matt Jones is now in charge of Hospital and Surgical Health Services. They will steer the AHS overhaul with Jason Nixon in Assisted Living Alberta and Rick Wilson in Recovery Alberta. In all, 12 MLAs received promotions Friday, including a new Minister of Municipal Affairs and Indigenous Relations and a newly created portfolio for an Associate Minister of Water. Karen, what's to be made of the Premier growing her inner circle further? More than half her caucus is now in cabinet.
Yeah, almost 60% of her caucus is in cabinet. It's quite astounding, especially for a ostensibly conservative government that really isn't conserving very much. I think it indicates that she's trying to keep the peace within her caucus and that there's fracturing, especially under the pressure of so many controversies at the moment. Maybe some of them are even categorized as scandals. So it seems like she's trying to keep a lot of people sweet. 27 ministers, 12 parliamentary secretaries. There's not many people left on the backbench. I'm sure the first 2 rows is just cabinet at this point.
Well, Lise, 4 cabinet ministers now overseeing health. What's your read on the necessity of that and what it might say about the continued overhaul of healthcare?
Well, I mean, I think, splitting the health ministry into 4 separate portfolios is really less, obviously, about efficiency and more about deflection. It really fragments accountability when the system is in crisis. And, who will Albertans blame when wait times increase? Matt Jones or Adriana LaGrange? It really does feel like smoke and mirrors at this point.
Karen, where do you feel this leaves Adriana LaGrange, especially given she's been under fire since the emergence of allegations of political interference involving contract procurement, the opposition calling it a big demotion?
Lisa's got a really good read on it in that it's going to be difficult to pin responsibility on any one particular minister, including LaGrange, who, had controversy as the education minister, controversy as the health minister. So it's a buffer for her without taking her out of cabinet completely. Obviously, the Premier sees value in having her in cabinet. Perhaps that's political rather than functional. And keeping her in cabinet keeps that perspective there, as well as, the opportunity to be able to point fingers in other directions when and if things go wrong.
Lise, beyond the cabinet shuffle around the handling of healthcare, what's maybe standing out for you among some of the other changes?
Well, I mean, the one that sticks out for me the most, of course, is the new Advanced Education Minister, Miles McDougall. So, Smith is elevating hardliners like McDougall, I think in an effort to shore up her support among the base, but also among rural MLAs. Who I think that there's some suggestion that she's losing control over her own caucus. So McDougall, you might remember, was at the center of a scandal when he apologized for Facebook posts that were racially insensitive, particularly towards Black and First Nations communities, and also really very critical of the post-secondary sector, and now he's advanced education minister. And in my neck of the woods, stakeholders are really keenly observing how his leadership will impact on issues like academic freedom and institutional autonomy. So he's someone affiliated with Take Back Alberta, who supported his nomination. So this is a good example of the sign that Smith is sending out with this shuffle.
Karen, any particular appointments in this latest shuffle that stand out for you?
I think a similar standout to Lise in that McDougall was also an attendee at the Injection of Truth meeting in South Calgary. And, being anti-science, I don't think is really the best prospect for post-secondary education in the province. Science is really integral to our economy. The oil and gas industry relies on engineering, it's just so critical. So I find that one in particular to be quite remarkable. Also, the move from Indigenous relations to his new portfolio, Rick Wilson, that's an interesting appointment, as well as the former Minister Williams from mental health, which he really seemed to embrace, to municipal affairs, replacing McIver, who's now the Speaker. That's an interesting move as well. He's more rural, and I think that rural support is really important. We've seen both Guthrie and the MLA from Slave Lake leave the caucus. That's a lot less rural MLA support, so she really needs to shore that up.
Lise, the UCP coming up on the midpoint of its four-year mandate. The Premier says her government's already accomplished 95% of what she laid out in early mandate letters. What do you expect this shuffle says about the move forward to the second half?
Yeah, well, I think that at the moment, what she's most worried about is keeping control of her caucus, first of all, but also the signs that, that the Conservative support, United Conservative support, and Conservative Party of Canada support might actually be fragmenting. I mean, we have, in a by-election, a member of the Republican Party of Alberta running, Cam Davies, who just resigned from the UCP. So, I think she's going to be looking really closely at the next election and leadership reviews and so on. She's in a very precarious position, I think, with the scandals that are currently emerging.
Stockwell Day, a voice from the political past, is weighing in on talk of a referendum on separation. Here's what he told CTV News Channel.
There's one thing for a politician to hear somebody say, I'm upset. Another thing to hear hundreds of thousands, if not maybe some millions, saying, we want to leave. We're so upset with the abuse, we want to leave the relationship. So it's quite a different thing.
The former Alberta cabinet minister, MP, and leader of the federal opposition is in support of Alberta holding a separation vote. And he says the Smith government passing a bill making it easier to launch citizen-led referendums is sending a stronger message to others. Lise Stockwell Day also says a separatist movement in Alberta presents a danger to federal conservatives. What do you take away from his messaging, and how maybe that fits into the dialogue here in Alberta?
Yeah, I mean, I was just saying that this old Didsbury Three Hills by-election that is currently underway. I mean, now we have a UCP candidate who was handpicked by the Premier running against a former UCP party member, Cam Davies. So we can see the danger already of the split in the vote by this move for separation. But Day, to be fair, said, he supports having a referendum, but he is worried, as you said, about the risks to the Conservative Party, but he also doubts the success of the referendum. There would need to be a very clear majority, according to the Supreme Court of Canada, to even begin to negotiate sovereignty with the federal government and with the other provinces. And at the moment, 67% of Albertans are against Alberta becoming an independent country, with 80% rejecting the idea of becoming a U.S. state. So I'm not sure that you'd get that very clear support that would be even needed to begin negotiations.
Karen, signals to be read here about how this whole separation referendum debate is playing out under the bigger conservative tent in our province?
Well, I mean, what we're hearing in media recently is what a bad business idea this is. This isn't good for the province. This isn't good for the country. It isn't good for our economy. It introduces so much uncertainty. And that's uncertainty both economically and politically. Neither of those things make Alberta attractive for people to migrate to immigrate to invest in, to make long-term investment plans in our province. The only upside that I can see is that it placates a part of the UCP base that Danielle Smith wants to keep close to her. So it's really a big gamble on her part, especially if it's going to fracture the conservative movement across the country.
Lise, one more on this topic. How sustainable is all of this talk of a referendum on separation? Does there come a point in the not too distant future that it just falls off the radar?
Well, I think so. I mean, I do think that once Albertans, even those who might be in support of this, recognize the consequences, the economic consequences, as Karen was already talking about, but also that even, just like a clear victory on a referendum is only the very first step, in sovereignty, according to the Supreme Court's succession reference case, which was from 1998, there would need to be a clear question, a clear majority. Then there would be negotiation, and this would all have to take place under the Constitution Act. So there would have to be a support of 7 out of 10 provinces and the federal government in order to move forward. So plus, things like, there's no old age pension necessarily. We might not necessarily get to carry a Canadian passport once people understand the consequences of separation. I think that even the support that might currently exist might shrivel.
All right. We have time for one more topic, and that's an Alberta-led initiative to dissect Canada's changing relationship with the U.S. and develop a vision of what it could become.
The U.S. is by far our biggest trading partner, and Alberta plays a major role in supplying U.S. energy needs. The way we see it, any rift between us is a huge loss for both countries. If things continue to change between Canada and the United States, we want it to be changed for the better.
The new North America Initiative, as it is to be known, will be based in the University of Calgary School of Public Policy. Researchers will partner with Alberta and American post-secondaries to reimagine what the continental relationship could look like. At a time of increasing trade uncertainty and geopolitical turmoil, the Alberta government investing $6.5 million into this initiative over 3 years. Karen, the government says the goal is to come up with concrete, diplomatic and innovative policy solutions. What's to be made of Alberta leading the charge here?
I think it's quite short-sighted. While the relationship with the United States is very important, I think probably we'd get a lot more out of studying the art of the deal than delving into the relationship that we have and what that might look like going forward. What is really important is to understand Alberta's overall trade relationship with all stakeholders. Are there other potential customers for our energy products that we can access and build our markets outside of just strictly relying on the United States or relying primarily on the United States? How can we spread that risk around? I'm happy to see an investment in post-secondary education. I'm unhappy that the scope is so narrow, quite limited, and I wonder what the purpose of it is.
Lise, last 30 seconds to you. Surprised the government would turn to the post-secondary academic realm to advance this initiative?
Not at all. I mean, I think that this represents the government testing the waters on an intrusion into institutional autonomy in the post-secondary sector. This has explicit ideological goals that suggest a risk of soft censorship that could limit academic inquiry. And I think that this is a serious concern for academic freedom and for a healthy academic ecosystem.
Okay, we're out of time. We'll have to leave it there. Good to see you both. Thank you kindly for this.
Take care.